Because I mean, like, what actionable thing do you think Kamala Harris could have done otherwise? Like, she can't sign an executive order. She can't actually make any direction for the federal government. You could say that she should have lobbied Congress. She did. Everything that she could have possibly done as the vice president, it seems like she did fairly well.
Okay, you made some good points.
If you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Rinyald. And if you disagree with anything in the video, make sure you join the Discord and we can have a chat sometime.
Hello.
How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you? You willing to do a peaceful debate?
Yeah. If you want to keep it peaceful, we'll be peaceful.
All right. Peaceful. Back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think Trump is terrible?
Because I think he views our American institutions as a roadblock instead of something to guide him. I think that he multiple times like undermined our government, and I think that's bad. I think he's an ineffective leader. He's not really good at his job. He's not good at getting any legislation passed whenever it's not whenever he doesn't have control of the entire Congress. And like he's just not good at legislating. He's not good at bringing people together. He always uses divisive rhetoric. I don't see any sort of benefit to having somebody like Donald Trump, and I can name you like a billion different defects.
Well, let's go like one by one so I can like actually think about each topic.
Yeah, that's fine.
So like, what was your first thing?
That Donald Trump hates our American values.
American values as in like our morals, or
like value for democracy, value for like freedom of speech, a value for like due process. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about any of these. He views them as roadblocks instead of something to.
When you say due process, are you talking about like immigration issues and all that?
That was yeah. In a lot of immigration cases, he robbed people of their due process rights. Yep.
See, he never actually deported a U.S. citizen, though.
That's true.
That's the thing.
That doesn't mean anything, though.
How does that not mean anything? Other countries, any other country, would keep their borders secured. Why do we?
I don't have a problem with him keeping our borders secured. I have a problem with him robbing people of their due process rights.
If you aren't a U.S. citizen, I don't believe you get those rights. I might be wrong.
You do. You do have that, yes. And SCOTUS reaffirmed that multiple times.
Okay. Well, I'm wrong.
Yeah, Donald Trump was robbing people of those due process rights.
I don't understand how, though. What went down? Yeah,
so due process is literally just saying if a piece of legislation like allocates a certain process that it has to apply to everybody equally. So like, let's say that, you know, Congress passes a law saying that if you're deportable under this particular law, you have this right and this right and this right, and the government doesn't give anybody the ability to actually use those rights, then that's a violation of somebody's due process rights. So we can look at the deportation of Kilmar Brego Garcia, where he had a valid withholding order preventing his deportation to El Salvador. And then Donald Trump's administration just deported him to El Salvador anyway and admitted that it was an error, but said that they wouldn't do shit about it. That's a violation of his due process rights because we violated his withholding order. Or we can look at the Alien Enemies Act, which was proclaimed by Donald Trump. We know from previous invocations that these alien enemies should have the ability to challenge whether or not they are an alien enemy. To contest their removal under the Alien Enemies Act, but instead Donald Trump was putting them on planes as quickly as he possibly could. They were saying that you would be able to talk to an immigration lawyer, but they were never given that opportunity, and then they were flown directly to El Salvador.
I agree that his process is definitely extreme, and
well, it's illegal, and it's like unconstitutional.
Yeah. Illegal. That's probably correct, and that's probably a fact, because in the United States today, we low-key like worship our politicians. Mm-hmm. I just want to ask you a question. So, do you think Kamala is better
than Donald Trump?
The border situation. No, I'm just saying at the border situation. Let's keep it on that topic, and we'll go like Kamala, Trump. Do you think Kamala has done anything better than Donald Trump border-wise? Because she was tasked with that. She was tasked with the border. Joe Biden specifically gave her. It's
kind of hard to judge a question like that because you're asking like, okay, who was better at stocking groceries? The person whose job it was to stock groceries, or you? who doesn't stock groceries. It's like, well, I don't have the same opportunity to stock groceries, so I don't know who's better at it. So when we compare
Kamala
Donald Trump,
specifically
when we
has the
compare
job.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, Donald Trump is the head of state. He is the president. He can sign executive orders. He can bring Congress together. He can do like he can veto or pass legislation. Kamala Harris, she can just do what the president delegates her and basically lobby and cast tie-breaking votes.
Donald Trump
So
can only pass
the
the
power
legislative.
the power that Kamala Harris has is way more dampened than Donald Trump because Donald Trump can sign executive orders. That's like a giant advantage that he has over Kamala Harris. So if we're looking at just like provable record, like what Kamala Harris has done versus what Donald Trump has done, I could say, I could make an argument that Kamala Harris would still be better because she didn't violate any laws when she was vice president to deport people, whereas Donald Trump did. But at the same time, the Kamala Harris doesn't really have the ability to do a whole lot at the border.
I disagree because Joe Biden, um, I wouldn't say no, she was voted in, but what I'm trying to say is Kamala's specific task was the border. What did she do for the border? Nothing.
What she did for the
We
border is
saw
she went to a couple countries and she was finding out the root causes of immigration from those countries. She did that relatively well, and she just had to report that back to the federal government. That's all her job was. Because I mean, like, what actionable thing do you think Kamala Harris could have done otherwise? Like, she can't sign an executive order. She can't actually make any any direction for the federal government. You could say that she should have lobbied Congress. She did, and they had popular support to pass the Langford bill. And then Donald Trump was calling Congress people to make sure that it didn't pass because it'd make a good election issue. Like everything that she could have possibly done as the vice president, it seems like she did fairly well.
Okay, you made some good points. I just got a question.
Mhm.
I fucking forgot.
You're good.
Why do you believe that we owe illegal immigrants a due process even though they are not citizens? Whether
Because
whether whether they technically are allowed it,
Mhm.
why do you feel that we should give that to them if they came into our country illegally? And if these people are not functioning members of society,
Mhm.
we should feel no remorse for putting them back in the society that they were not functioning in either.
there's two reasons. The first and the most importantly is because if you don't give an immigrant due process rights, so like if you don't give them the right to challenge whether or not they're deportable or challenge whether or not they're illegal, then how do we guarantee that they're even illegal in the first place? Like if you're not giving them any ability and you just pick them up and get them out, then like how do you know that that person was even illegal if they don't have the ability to appeal out to any other body or if they don't have any rights that they can invoke? If you're setting the precedent that we can revoke something like due process rights from any group, that means as long as you're alleged to be within that group, you're fucked. You don't have any rights if you're alleged to be in that group, and you don't need to prove it because you don't have due process rights. So that's the first one, and the second one is because due process is kind of presupposed. So if we have any law dictating any immigration process, and there's any amount of right that you could allocate to an immigrant in that process. So let's say that the thing says that if ICE detains somebody, they can't keep them in detention forever, right? That would be due process. That would be the person's due process. So if you say, like, have a way to say, hey, I'm being detained for a fuck ton of time, all right? It seems like I'm going to be detained forever, and you appeal out to somebody. That's you exercising your due process rights. So, I mean, we can argue whether or not their due process rights are too large or not or whatever, but due process rights existing is basically presupposed by any law being targeted towards any group.
Okay, yeah, but what exactly are those? What were you just saying? The fucking, I'm blanking. I'm sorry. What were you just on the subject?
So if I was to guess, like, are you asking like what are the due process rights that are allocated?
Yes.
It
Like, let's get more specific on this.
It depends. So, if you're removed under like the expedited removal process, then your due process rights, I'm pretty sure, is just you can seek asylum or you go. Like, I think that's literally all your due process rights are. If you're deportable under the Alien Enemies Act, then you have the right to habeas petition, and you have the right to basically have just a route to challenge your designation as an alien enemy and the right to challenge the constitutionality of the law or something. But it depends on. So when you get deported, it needs to be under a particular statute that gives you the power to deport them. Um, and like what your due process is depends on what law you're invoking to be able to deport somebody.
Gotcha. I totally agree with you, honestly. I don't think we should be kicking people out of the country for no reason. But I also agree that we shouldn't be letting people in.
I
That's kind of my
probably
view.
I probably agree, although I think that the amount of people being quote unquote let in is like super over exaggerated. But I mean, like I agree. We need to have the ability to tell who's coming into the country.
I'm glad we can agree on that because, I mean, that's important that we can agree on something because I feel like a lot of what the media tries to do is they try to make these issues bigger than they actually are, and everybody gets like super
Mhm.
one-sided about it, and it's got to be it becomes hateful. It's part of the reason what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Kind of. All right, we could have a screaming match about that, but I like you too much, right? I don't want to yell at you.
Yeah. I mean,
All right. Well, is there anything
personally,
else?
I mean, I was gonna get down the list of the topics you bring up, but
Okay. Yeah, I mean we can if you want to.
sure, let's do it.
So the other thing I brought up, so it was a disdain for due process rights. It was a disdain for the First Amendment. Do you agree with that? That Donald Trump
As
doesn't support the First Amendment?
I disagree.
Okay. So the reason that I say that is because I think Donald Trump has basically done whatever he can to chill First Amendment protected speech. So you can look at him trying to sign the executive order to prevent people from burning the American flag, which has already been upheld by SCOTUS as constitutionally protected speech. You can look at him revoking the student visa of this woman named Romeo Ozturk. And what she did basically is she wrote an
Now,
op-ed.
hold on. Let me talk about the American flag real quick.
Yeah, sure.
We sign an executive order to not burn anybody else's American flag. That's what people like to leave out. Is if you look, you can literally just look this up and it'll tell you
Yeah,
Donald
that's not
Trump
true.
burning the American flag.
So
It's
what Donald Trump
it's
actually
damaged property. Is what
what
he's
Donald Trump did is he basically made it a tack on thing that you could throw on. So if you can possibly charge somebody for burning the American flag with any applicable law, then you should do it. That's basically what it said. So if you burn somebody else's flag, that's something that you could be charged with. If you burn a flag in violation of city ordinance, then he's basically just saying if you can find a law that this violates, charge them with it. That's what that executive order says.
gotcha.
But the problem is, and if you could even probably say that that executive order wasn't illegal. The problem is that if we're trying to harshly enforce and basically look for laws that this would violate, in order to crack down on already established constitutionally protected speech, there's no reason to do it. Like literally the only reason to do this is to crack down on constitutionally protected speech. Like if you were burning something, if it was the American flag or otherwise, in violation of city ordinance, and it was a big deal, you were already going to be charged with that. So he's basically saying, enforce it way harder, and that's that's at best case scenario just stupid, and at worst case scenario, it's doing every legal route that you could do to possibly chill this
Yeah,
kind of First Amendment speech.
yeah, I got
Yeah, somebody in chat said it perfectly. It's either redundant or a violation of the First Amendment.
that makes sense. I don't think we should be burning American flags, but that's just opinion based. We don't have to get into that.
Yeah,
But
that's a personal value. Like I think it's probably stupid too. But
yeah,
at the same time, it's your right to do it. Like if we want to say like, oh yeah, you shouldn't be rioting. What you should be doing is like protesting. You should do First Amendment protected speech or a protest, and then you do First Amendment protected protest, and then you get arrested for it. It's like, well, what the fuck? Like, well, I thought this is what I was supposed to be doing. All right, burning the flag is it is peaceful. That's a form of peaceful protest. If you get
it can't
arrested
just
for
be.
it, that's really stupid.
I think if it's peaceful, it should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I don't see it as right, but that's just my moral values. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's not affecting anybody else, if it's not somebody else's property, you go and buy an American flag. You should have the right to burn that and protest. That
Mm-hmm.
is First Amendment. I totally agree with you on that. I kind of want to flip the script here, though.
Yeah, sure.
I want to say um, Would it be crazy if I said Joe Biden is a weirdo, uh, pedophile, um, and he's been known to touch little boys? And there's
Weirdo,
photos.
yes. Maybe a little touchy, yes. Pedophile, no.
Okay, maybe pedophile is extreme, but I still think
Well, it's
he's
like
a
it's like
big
it's
weirdo,
it's like
and the
wrong.
fact
I
that
mean,
he
he's
is
he's
our
weird, sure.
president and leader of our country was a little,
At the
um,
same time, though,
it was kind of a
be
shot to the country's morality.
be careful what kind of attacks you levy against Joe Biden, because I say this a lot. Whatever attack you can levy against an elected Democrat, all right. If you levy the attack like, oh, Joe Biden is really weird around kids,
You could say the same
and you
about
voted for
Trump.
Donald Trump, it's like,
I didn't
okay,
vote
is
for
this like
anybody else.
actually a value?
I just turned 18, so I haven't voted yet. That's part
Oh,
of the
okay,
reason I'm like on these TikTok lives is to
get like your opinion reformed.
yeah. But
I respect that.
the main thing I'm realizing is everybody agrees that we have the right to have our opinion
Yeah,
and that this should be kept peaceful.
except for
But
Donald Trump. Ah, true. Sorry. Um,
and I think the problem is politicians themselves. They're all of them are corrupt. Because if you look about people think when it comes to voting day that we only have two options and that those two options are like this one's good, this one's bad, and that literally divides the country into if everybody could think for themselves. I mean, people would be voting for like five different parties, but like
maybe
people
the
don't like to do that. They're so brainwashed by their the influence social media has on especially young kids, and you can just spread false information so easily. That comes on both sides. I'm not specifically targeting a party.
see the problem that I have with this though is that it's almost it's almost the case that I agree in a hypothetical reality that like multiple parties with ranked choice voting would probably be better. But right now, that like the reality that we exist in is that it is a two-party system. And I can't really think of a feasible solution to that problem either. Like I think America is always just necessarily going to be two-party
I can
a
give you a
two-party
solution.
state. And I feel like I'm pretty sure most democracies end up devolving into being a two-party state. Um, but and right now, the two parties that we exist in, I do genuinely believe that one is 75% reasonable, probably, maybe 70% reasonable, and one is like 2 to 3% reasonable. And trying to equate these two parties as to like, oh well, it is what it is. You just have to make your point, and that is what it is. I think that's super super dishonest. I feel like we're choosing between I feel like we're choosing between I want spaghetti and you gave me like a slice of pizza, or I want spaghetti and you ripped my foot off. Like I don't I feel like these two choices are it's super super easy to make a choice between somebody like Donald Trump and somebody like Kamala Harris.
Well, we can talk about their personal wrongdoings all day, and yeah, that makes them a horrible person. But what Donald Trump has, I mean, what he's done for the economy. I mean, eggs are down from when
It
Biden
hasn't.
was in term. I mean,
Here's
gas is
another
down.
here's another problem.
I
So
mean, it is all down.
when you look at
Whether he has anything to do with that or not, I don't know.
that's the
But
problem is when you look at politics and we look at policy, it you'll be steered in the wrong way whenever you look at a trend and you associate it with whoever's president at that given time.
yeah,
Because keep in mind that a lot of the credit that Donald Trump is taking for these giant investments into the country are on the grounds of a big microchip producer just invested a fuck ton to create a new factory in the United States, but that was because of Joe Biden and his Chips Act that was passed in 2022 or 2023. So like politics and good policy takes a couple years, if not like a decade, to actually sit in and have its effect. So saying, oh well, this trend went up in 2016, so it must have been Donald Trump, is probably misleading yourself, because a lot of the time I think it actually almost speaks to the opposite, that Democrats will pass like pretty decent policy through Congress. It'll take a couple years to show up. The Republican gets elected. He takes credit for it. he kind of fucks shit up for a little bit, and then the next Democrat comes in and he has to pick up the pieces and then pass new legislation that will manifest in another 4 years, and et cetera, et cetera. Now that's not always the case, but when like I don't think that we can give Donald Trump credit for seeing like decent economic measurements when Joe Biden was in office for 4 years. He passed giant investments into infrastructure. And he passed giant investments into microchip manufacturing. To give Donald Trump credit for good infrastructure, or to give Donald Trump credit for giant investments into the country, when Biden is probably way more to blame than that. And the only actual economic policy that Donald Trump has done in this presidency was the tariffs, which have been pretty fucking catastrophic so far. And like drastically cutting the IRS funding, which is not drastic yet, but is going to be drastic by the time that tax season comes around, because a big department that he cut was the tax collection department of the IRS. All of the economic policy that Donald Trump has done thus far seems really fucking bad.
But this is all gonna skyrocket the economy in the future.
I don't think it is.
But like I do think it will. But you don't think Donald Trump has humongous influence on the economy as a whole? Like,
it depends.
The fact that he was some kind of economist before he was president. I mean, he
wasn't really an economist. He was just a business guy.
He was a businessman. But he had an insane amount of money. He didn't really need any interest groups until.
Sure, but I mean, he also got like giant investments, and like he had like giant amounts of generational wealth.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't take away the fact that he still had money.
Sure, but I mean, he had money because his dad gave him a small loan of $1 million to start his first company. I mean, like, I don't know if that's really like smart business acumen as much as he had a really fucking rich dad.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, most politicians are greedy little bastards anyways.
Sure, I agree. I agree partially, but if you ask almost any economist, they'll say that Donald Trump's tariff plan is fucking disastrous. And the only reason that it hasn't completely crashed like all of our global markets is because he reneged on a lot of them. So
we can't give him credit for that.
For pulling back on his own policy. I mean, like, I don't know why we would, when we if the alternative of Donald Trump actually doing nothing would have been better than the alternative that he did.
You shoot high, settle for medium. You don't.
No, he didn't even really shoot high. He shot high, and we're still shooting high. We're still shooting almost just as high. I mean, like,
he pulled back on his policy.
No, that's not why he pulled back on his policy. He pulled back on his policy because we saw giant fucking crazy stats in the stock market, and people were getting really fucking crazy, or really fucking scared, including the investors who kept calling the White House saying like, hey, if you don't walk back on these tariffs, we're cooked. Like, my stock portfolio is fucked right now, and I don't know what the fuck you're doing. So if you don't walk back on it, I'm getting the fuck out of here. That's why that he ended up walking back on a lot of those tariffs. I mean, even Ben Shapiro said that a lot of his Wall Street insiders were calling him fucking terrified about what Donald Trump was going to do next.
But these businesses are investing because of these tariffs. It's influencing people to invest into American-made companies. That's literally just facts, and that's what Trump wants to do.
Not really, though.
He wants to keep most of our production in America, because then tariffs aren't a worry. And if we become the production powerhouse of the world instead of China,
it's not even really going to do much. But the problem is that, so let's say that we get a fuck ton of steel from Taiwan. I'm making this up right now, but this is just like basic econ. You know, like, let's say we get a fuck ton of steel from Taiwan. We had a 0% tariff on Taiwan, and now we have a 15% tariff on Taiwan. And there's this company.
What tariff did Taiwan have on us?
Not relevant right now. We can bring it into the equation later, but I'm just trying to illustrate why it's not necessarily true that if we have a fuck ton of, if we have like giant tariffs, that's not going to bring manufacturing back necessarily. So Taiwan gives us steel, all right, and we import the steel. We make products with the steel. There's a company that makes cars, all right, and they need steel to make those cars. And then we put a 15% tariff to bring steel manufacturing back to the U.S. on Taiwan. But while that's happening, while we have the 15% tariff on the steel from Taiwan, that also increases production costs for the car industry because they're using that steel to make cars. So not only are you going to raise the price of steel in isolation because there's a 15% tariff on it necessarily, that's an import tax, but you're also import taxing the people that are using that material to make other things that are already in the United States. Not only are you increasing the price of this material, but you're also increasing input costs for corporations. And what we saw in the in Donald Trump's first term is that those giant tariffs on China actually ended up decreasing net job growth because people had to offset or lay people off because they were incurring giant fucking costs for inputs for their manufacturing things.
I was just about to say something. I forget. Oh, so you don't think if they raise their prices, they're still going to be able to produce the same amount? People are still going to buy from them, and people are going to start investing into
Well,
that company because they're making more money each sale,
no,
which is going to
they're
up their value anyways.
the only reason that they're making more money each sale is because they have to pay the import tax to the federal government for the tariff. So the only reason they're raising prices is so that they can use the money that they made from raising the prices to pay the import tax.
Thing is, most of these big businesses are owned by one large conglomerate,
That's true, but
and
we can't
they
like
control like everything. Like
we live in a
what,
capitalist market. We live in a capitalist system. We can't expect to like massively raise input costs and expect them to just eat that cost.
no, but what I'm saying is we import the steel. Taiwan also needs stuff from us. We export it. They have a 15% tariff, so we make
Not in
our
all
money. We take
cases.
that.
Taiwan doesn't
Not
need
in all
stuff.
cases. I didn't say in
There's a
all
lot.
cases.
There's a lot of cases where that's why like this idea of like trade deficits being necessarily bad is stupid because it's sometimes the case that we like that this country A doesn't really need all that much from us, but we need a fuck ton of the material from country A in order to be profitable. So let's say that in this case, Taiwan doesn't really need anything that the U.S. manufactures, but they manufacture a fuck ton of steel, and we could buy it for $1 a pop, and then create a product with it and sell it for $500 a pop. It doesn't matter how much we export out to that country. We're still making a fuck ton of money based off of the import that we got from Taiwan.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
What's your main point though?
That it's not necessarily bad to have trade deficits and that tariffs are actually disrupting our global economy for no real discernible reason.
That makes sense, but I still think that tariffs. I mean, there's also times when trade deficits are bad. I mean,
Theoretically, but I mean, like, they're not bad in nature. And Donald Trump's tariffs on Liberation Day were literally just designed to tackle any country that we have a trade deficit with. Like, there was no deeper analysis in it.
why would you want to have a trade deficit with somebody?
Because if it's profitable, then it doesn't matter how much we export out to them. Because if it's
trade
profitable
deficit,
to import a fuck ton and they don't want any of our shit, it doesn't matter.
It's not profitable if we're in a trade deficit.
It
You know
is
the
profitable.
definition of
It's the hypothetical that I just gave you. Like if Taiwan is exporting a fuck ton of steel from us, but they don't really need anything from us, and we can transform that $1 per unit steel to $500 per unit like higher level manufactured goods, and we sell it to a different country, then that's profitable for us. And it's profitable for the consumers because they don't have to pay a fuck ton. Because also, like, generally, manufacturing overseas is cheaper than manufacturing here, so they don't have to pay extra money either.
Yeah, I understand. Let me give you my point on it. So, when we buy the steel from country A, let's say Taiwan, we get the steel, we manufacture, let's say, cars. We'll just use that as an example.
Sure.
We export those cars for a 15% tariff, let's say. Okay.
Well,
now
what do you mean we would export them for a 15% tariff?
we put a 50% tariff on the country that imports them. Sorry.
Well, but the tariff, if we're selling something to a country, our tariff would have no effect on that. So
What is a trade deficit if it's not money loss?
a trade deficit. So a trade deficit is when there's two countries and you export, let's say, you export $200 worth of a particular product, and we export like $10 worth of a particular product, then you have a $190 trade deficit.
Say that one more time.
There's two countries, and
Two
country
countries.
A gives $200 worth of product to country B, and country B gives $10 worth of product to country A. Then those two countries have a $190 trade deficit.
Oh, but we could sell the $10 worth of product for more than $10, is what you're saying?
We could
Yeah.
use the so if country A pays country B $200 worth of steel, we only give them like $10 worth of potatoes or something, but we use that $200 worth of steel to create $10 million or whatever like
Yeah.
fucking like $10,000 worth of product that we sell to country C. That's even though we have a trade deficit with that one country, we also just made a fuck ton of money regardless, you know.
That's what I was saying. I was
But that's the
trying to
problem
tell
is
you.
that Donald Trump was using these tariffs to address trade deficits, which aren't necessarily bad.
I should probably do my own research on this. But
No problem.
you're probably a little bit smart. You probably read a little bit more than me.
I just, yeah, this is just like one of my special interests. I have, if you're ever interested, all right, I have this website where I publish all of my notes on everything. So if you ever want to take a look, all my notes
Yeah,
are public.
what's the website?
I'm trying to think of the best way to send it to you because it's like a super long link. Um,
Just DM me.
yeah, I can just DM it to you. Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
I'll follow you back, buddy.
All right. I forgot what I was gonna say. I was on a topic of something. I was asking, how old are you?
I'm 21.
21. Okay. I just turned 18 recently, so.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's really good. I generally believe that like going out and talking to different people with different political ideology is the best way to get smarter in general, especially when a big thing that I push whenever I debate people is just having humility. It's just like knowing when you don't know something and not pretending like you know it just to feel smart. I think that's like the biggest way to shoot yourself in the foot when you're actually looking to grow.
That's,
Um,
yeah, I agree.
so I mean, yeah, I think this is a really good way, and I encourage you to talk to right wing people too, or watch left wing people talk, like more educated left wing people talk to more educated right wing people. You'll generally find that the more educated left wing people are just smarter and they know more. But that's just me.
I mean, I've seen some pretty smart conservatives that talk a lot better than I do.
Well, if they're on this app, chances are I've probably talked to them, and I don't think I've lost a debate to anybody on TikTok. So
Well,
I don't know, man.
one of these days you'll be losing me, so.
Huh?
One of these days you'll be losing me, so just give me some time.
Yep. I
All
believe
right.
it, buddy. All right. I love you.
Well, I'm gonna head out. See you, bro. Love you too.